This is one of my many Hylotelephiums, which is the old sedums. And I'm having a bit of a shufty around again, as usual, in the garden. And I've lifted some of these. Now, this particular one, which I suspect is Sedum spectabile, and it'll be the brilliant group, which is just a group of similar looking plants. And as you can see, they all probably look similar to that one. Some of them have a more pinkish tone. And I really like them. Now, as I said, this one was already in the garden when I came, and this is what I call Igor the Giant. It's just a selected Matrona seedling that I've split and put in here, and it's slightly larger. Matrona's a really good variety if you're looking for a good variety. And what I've decided while I'm on the subject of this one is, as I said, I've lifted some. And I've lifted them from this area here, which is, again, in redevelopment, because there was plants in here that just weren't going to cut the mustard, really. So I've decided they had to come out, and I rather than just try and plonk them back in, because I'm a bit of a bugger for trying to just plant things straight back in. Sometimes I have the space for them, and I can find somewhere immediately for them. But as you know, up at Grassy Bottom, we've been filling out the borders for the last 2 years. So what I'm decided to do today is I've decided I'm going to split them. Now, Hylotelephiums, or sedums, as we'll keep going on, are they're a perennial, and what they do is they look like this at this time of year anyway, but as we get going they will die away, and eventually all that will become just a bit of a mush, and that's the point where I will remove them and take them down. In fact, if we go here to this one here, which is Carfunkelstein, this is one of the earlier ones to flower. It's already got to that stage, so that's, to be quite honest, is ready to be taken out. And as you can see from the bottom, it's already putting up its new stuff. And for me, now is a good time to split these things. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how I go about it. I think I've shown on a previous video how I do it, but I've got some that I've taken out of the garden, as I've said, and I don't want to put them back in. But what I will do is I will split them down into segments, pot them up, and then keep them in my nursery area and wait till next year and see if I can find somewhere else to put them, rather than this time giving them away or throwing them away, which sometimes I do. Now, this particular one here is going to be the same as what I've actually lifted. It come from the same border. This border was here, but it wasn't as big as this when I first moved here. I'm just telling you that as a point of reference so that you know. So if you imagine the birch tree there, the border was literally came out as far as that, and it just ran up that little brick wall. But I've extended it, turned it into something bigger. So these sedums are already here. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to show you how I go about splitting them and repotting them. So I'm now in my nursery area where I brought the plants to. I just dumped them in this wheelbarrow. Here we go. There they are, and that's the very plant that I'm going. There's 3 of them actually that I'm going to be splitting up, and they're mixed in with this inula, which is hookery eye, and it actually found its way in there, and it's a bit of an invasive plant. But I am going to pot that up as well while we're at it. So we're going to do it in the greenhouse. I'm using a product called Plant Grow. And that's a nice compost. I've also got their mulch, but I'm going to use them on this occasion and pot them up. I'm going to put them into, I think, the size of the split will be dependent on the size of the pot I'm going to put them in. I'm hoping that they'll go into these. Where are we? Right, let's put that there. I'm hoping they'll go into those ones there, which is a 3-litre pot. And that'll be a really, really nice size for a Hylotelephium for next year, and it'll clump up quickly. Now, we're coming into winter now, so it's not the best time of year to do this, but, you know, I've lifted them. I don't want to throw them. I don't want to put them back in the garden, so I'm going to split them. And I'll get away with it as long as you can put them into a place where they can have protection once they're potted on. They'll be absolutely fine. A lot of the nurserymen split at this time of the year because they've got the polytunnels, and they just keep them in there. So if you've got a greenhouse or some protected area, it's just as good. Okay, let's start splitting it. So I brought the plant into the greenhouse now. I've just stuck it into this bucket because it's actually full of soil. as you can see down there. But you can see, you can maybe just make out those little green stubby things. That's the new growth. Now, what I'm going to tell you, you shouldn't be doing this in the garden at the moment, is to cut these back completely. I would definitely chop all these stalks off right down to the base, because we don't need them. We're potting on, we're not planting back in the garden. So, as usual, nobody to help me. But basically, you get persecutors. I'm using these flower snips because they're just as good. Because it's not a very tough stalk, to be quite honest with you. And all you do is you go right down the base, snip that off. You can take the whole plant out. Now, the nurseryman in me, or the plant grower in me, would say, do you know what, don't throw that away, because that's several new plants and you can strike some cuttings from that. But I don't need them. Just simply don't need any more of them. I've got loads of Hylotelephiums in my garden and I absolutely love them, but I don't need any more than I'm going to be splitting up. So I'm just simply putting them there for now, and then I shall put them into the compost bin. So as you can see, I'll show you again, just simply snipping off. Snip a few of them so we can expose the stubby growth, the new growth. And this new growth won't really start coming up properly now until spring, till the weather changes in the spring. So don't expect any new flowers to come this year if you're in the UK, and I'm in November at the moment. So don't expect anything to come up from this. It'll just sit there in its dormancy, doing nothing. So there you go. You can see now more of the stubby growth down there. So you carry on just removing all of those, take the lot off. So here's another interesting little feature of this plant. What it will do, it'll produce these little side shoots. So I can hold that to focus in. But it will produce these little side shoots. God, it never wants to focus, this camera, it's ridiculous. But anyway, it produces those side shoots, as you can see. They're out of focus at the moment, but they're basically little leaves that are coming out from the sides. You can wait for those to develop, and you can remove them, and they'll remove, oh, there we go, that's better. So you see those little side shoots, so you can actually wait for those to grow on the plant, get a bit taller, and then simply take them off. And the likelihood is they'll be producing tiny little roots like they are there. Tiny little roots, and you can remove those, but I just don't bother. There's no point. It's just such an easy plant to propagate that there's no point in doing that, unless you've got a really rare one that you want to propagate very quickly. Now, I will use two of my little hand forks back to back on this, as we always tell you. Two little hand forks back to back, put in there, and simply break them apart to wherever I feel is necessary. So this has got, it's a good clump, as you can see. It's a really good clump. So where do we do it? Don't know. I don't know. It's all exciting, isn't it? So because I'm on my own again, it's very difficult to film myself doing it, but I shall basically put them in like that. I'll do this off camera in a minute, and then we'll come back to it. So I should basically put them back to back, and I shall force those two forks either that way or the other way to get towards each other, and it will snap the plant in half. And that's what I'll start with. I'm quite experienced at this, but I think I'm going to take that in half, because I'm going to try and keep some bigger plants on this occasion, because I want to put them into those 3-litre pots, as I said earlier. So let's see what happens, and hopefully that'll go well. So there we go, the split. I've managed to split them into 3 parts on this particular plant. Each plant will vary depending on the plant size. If you get a tiny little sort of variety, split, then I suggest you go for a smaller plant pot. Try not to put them in too big a plant pot. Let's have a look at the size of this one. Now, if you're struggling to find what your plant pot size is, it's always on the bottom. Now, in this case, you're not going to see it through this camera because it's very difficult to see for me, and I'm actually stood in front of it. But I know this is going to be there we go. I know it's going to be a 2-litre, and it's there, right in there, and it'll say 2L. Which is great. That's a good size. Now that size will probably suit this one here, because this one's slightly smaller. Now you can see I may struggle to get that root in there, but what I shall do is chop some of that root back, being careful not to remove too much of that root. So this is the feeder roots. That's quite important. That if you can keep that type of root, leave that alone and don't do anything with it. But don't worry if you do, because it will bounce back. So you basically just take some of this off. Now, what you probably don't know as well is you can also take cuttings from that little tiny thing there. That's part of the root, and they do root very successfully from that. I've done it many, many times before. But in this case, as I said, I do not need all of that. Now, there are some chunkier bits at the top here, as you can see, that I've left. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take those off, and we'll just dispose of those, get them into the compost heap. A lot of people, what they do when they do this sort of work, they actually wash these, and nurseries in particular will wash the roots out, and that's because they want to get rid of any pests and diseases that may be harboured in there. But I'm an individual, and it doesn't matter too much for me. I don't have to worry about that. So the likelihood is most of these will probably go back in my own garden, or I'll give them to friends. And if there's a pest and disease in there, then so be it. It's not going to cause too many problems for them. So yeah, what you want to be doing is aiming at getting rid of some of these long, straggly little roots. They're very fleshy, and I will take that off, even though that's got some good feeder roots on, because this will bounce back really quickly. As long as I chop enough back and leave enough root in there, it's going to be absolutely fine. If I so wish, I could split this one further. I could take it down into its tinier parts. Each one, well, I wouldn't go any more than 3 of those little leaves, but I could technically remove some of those as well. But we won't. So, as I said, we need to be mindful about how much we're removing, and how much we need to leave on. Be careful, don't take too much off, although it won't matter too much. I'm trying to be nice to you, really, because I would take loads of that off and wouldn't care, because I'm so used to doing it. But if you're an amateur and new to it and you're scared about this sort of thing, then just be wary. So some of these things here may have a bit of rot developing them, and this is probably the reason we really snip some of these off, to get rid of that rot. You can see the dead and dying ones are there. They're dead and dying, or dead in that case, and we just simply snip them off. Don't worry if you catch one of the leaves. It doesn't matter. Don't matter at all. It's a bit more difficult when you're filming on your own, because you can't get into the positions you want to with the plant, so you've literally got to do what you can. So I'll probably continue off camera doing this, but basically you just carry on snipping it and look at the root size. So you can see the root size there, and I want that to fit into there. Now that is a 2 litre pot, sorry, and that is a 3 litre. And as you can see, if that's all you've got, a 3 litre, put it in a 3 litre. It doesn't matter. So I think now that would fit happily in there. So to make my life easier, I'm gonna do this now. I'm gonna put this particular one in now while we're filming it. Let's hope the camera don't go crazy on me again, as it often does. So I'm taking some of my prepared compost, which is basically just got a bit of perlite in it. Feed, I put feed into them. Don't know if you can see it in there. Little bits of feed are there. That's fine. And I put just stuff in it to sort of aerate it. But to be quite honest with you, as I said, I'm using Plant Grow. Here's the bag. These are online. If you check out them, their stuff is absolutely brilliant. It's already this crumbly, fine textured stuff, and it just works well for the root system. So I don't worry too much about breaking it up too much. Don't be too soft when you're planting these things. People do prat about and mess around with this thing. They'll be tapping it like that. Don't. Just get it in there, and then just get your plant in there. It's just, if you start faffing around, you'll end up causing yourself extra problems. So we're looking to make sure that this section here sits level with this ridge here. Now in this case, it's not doing it. And the reason being, it's got some old gnarly rootstock down there. Let's get it on camera. Where is it? There it is. So what we'll do is we'll chop some of that out. That's preventing it going lower than I wanted it to. Now I'm taking off some more root. Don't worry again, because this will come back. It wouldn't hurt you to cut this back. Get rid of some of this straggly stuff. Don't worry about it. As long as you've got something similar to that, you'll be fine. You plonk it in. It's still too high, so we'll just simply remove more compost. There's 1 or 2. There it is. There's the offending article. Don't be afraid to cut it off. Yes, I know it's got feeder roots on it. Should we be removing it? Yes, we should. We shouldn't be messing about with Hylotelephiums. They're very very forgiving. So there we go, it's in there now. And what I do, I just bang a load of compost in there. Sing a song, encourage it. It might grow quicker for you if you sing. There you go. And then you just literally put it in loose. Put it in loose. Don't do any more than this. A lot of people will do this. I do it. It's out of habit. I press the sides in. It doesn't need it. What all you really need to do is tap it. There we go. You tap it like that. If you feel there's not enough in there, don't forget, once this settles, it is going to sink a little bit more, and you may have to come back to it and top it up again, and then put some more on it. So it's slightly below the surface, most of it, but don't worry about that. It's not going to cause a problem. And then what I tend to do nowadays is I've got this bark, this decorative bark that I just put around it, and that just stops it and helps it not to rot. It keeps it dry through winter, and it really does help, and it looks nice as well. But there it is. I'm not going to worry too much about it now. I'm going to leave it alone. Oops. There you go. Look, I've just spilt it all out. Crazy. Try again. Come on, Richard. You're rubbish. Right, there we go. So we're in. We've got it going. There's a bit in there. It may sink, that compost. Be sure to water it. I've not got enough water in here, but we'll put a bit of water in. I've got another watering can somewhere in here. Here it is. I've got this old one. So we'll pour some more water into it. Water it in well, a bit more than that, to be honest. Give it a good watering. Don't forget to label it. Do not forget to label it, because I will guarantee you will forget which one you've planted. I'll guarantee, and if it's you'll know it's an Hylotelephium eventually, but you'll not remember which one. I've not wrote on this yet, but I put in 8-inch labels because they're easier to write on. As you can see, they're quite long. They're easy to write on. I use something as simple as this. This is brilliant. Use any ordinary pencil if you want. I also use these types of pencils, just ordinary HBs, and they're great. Don't use pens. Do not go out buying pens that are specifically for writing on labels. It's a bit of a con. You don't need them. Just use a bloody pencil. That's all you need. Save yourself a fortune. The people that sell them pens are just trying to make money out of you, and you don't need it. Put it aside somewhere. I don't know where I'll put it. I've got some good sections outside. As you can see, I've got a nice area out here where we will stack it. We've got plenty of room for them at the moment. Don't know where I'll put them. Tend to keep them together. Here's one I did before, earlier in the year. And that's, which one is that one? That should be, oh no, that's Black Knight. So we've got one called Black Knight there, which goes a really deep colour. It's really, really pretty. Tends to flop a bit, but a bit of a Chelsea chop sorts that out. And just set it aside. Don't expose it anywhere. You don't want it sat on top of a mountain. Something like this would be ideal. Something like near your greenhouse, near the shed, which is there, would be absolutely excellent and would suit it down to the ground. So there you go. That's how to take your cuttings for your sedums, or as they are known now, Hylotelephium. And in this case, mine's Spectabler, and likely to be the Brilliant group. So if you look that up, you'll see. Any questions, fire away at me, and I'll talk to you soon. Ta-ra.